Hello everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel. This is Narayan Rao Kovur. In this video, we are going to understand cross demand. What is the meaning of cross demand and prices of related goods are how many types? What are the substitutes and what are the complementaries? These are the details. Now I am going to explain in this video. What is the meaning of cross demand? It explains the functional relationship between quantity demand of a good and the prices of related goods ceteris paribus. Ceteris paribus means other things remains constant. ప్రైజెస్ ఆఫ్ రిలేటెడ్ గూడ్స్లో కానీ చేంజ్ వస్తే డిమాండ్లో చేంజ్ వస్తుంది అనే విషయాన్ని క్రాస్ డిమాండ్ ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేస్తుంది. ఇన్ అదర్ వర్డ్స్, demand for a particular good may change due to changes in the price of related goods. This is called cross demand. Demand for a particular good may change due to changes in the prices of related goods. The related goods are two types. Related goods are two types. One is substitutes, another one is complementaries. Prices of related goods are two types. One is substitutes or competing goods. Second one is complementaries. So now let us examine first substitutes or competing goods. Substitutes or competing goods. Substitute goods are used easily in place of one another to satisfy same want. Substitutes are the goods which are used one for another to satisfy the same want. Those goods are called substitutes. You know very well, coffee and tea are substitutes, thumbs up and coke are substitutes, chicken biryani and mutton biryani substitutes, examples, right? So in the case of substitutes, a rise in price of one will cause the demand for other to rise. A rise in price of one will cause the demand of other to rise and vice versa. The price of one commodity rises, the demand for other commodity also rises. Price of one commodity falls, the demand for other commodity also falls. There is a positive or direct relationship in the case of substitutes. Here, a rise in price of one will cause the demand of other to rise and vice versa. Vice versa means opposite. Next, so for example, coffee and tea are substitutes. Price of coffee, demand for tea. Price of coffee, demand for tea. Price of coffee increases, the demand for tea also increases. The price of coffee increases, the demand for tea also increases, and vice versa. That means price of coffee falls, demand for tea also falls. Therefore, there is a positive or direct relationship between in the case of substitutes. Substitutes విషయంలో పాజిటివ్ రిలేషన్షిప్ ఉంటుంది, డైరెక్ట్ రిలేషన్షిప్ ఉంటుంది. Therefore, demand curve slopes upwards from left to right. Demand curve slopes upwards from left to right. For example, coffee and tea, and so petrol scooter and electrical scooter. Petrol scooter and electrical scooter. Chicken biryani, mutton biryani. Those are example of substitutes, examples for substitutes. So it can be explained with the help of diagram. So draw L shape, mark YOX, price of coffee measured on y-axis, demand for tea measured on x-axis. Original price is OP, original demand or quantity is OQ. Price increases from OP to OP1, quantity also increases from OQ to OQ1. Price increases, demand also increases. Price decreases, demand also decreases. Therefore, if you observe, price of coffee increases, demand for tea also increases. Price of coffee falls, demand for tea also falls. Therefore, demand curve slopes upwards from left to right. So positive or direct relationship between in the case of substitutes. Substitute విషయంలో పాజిటివ్ ఆర్ డైరెక్ట్ రిలేషన్షిప్ ఉంటుంది. Therefore, demand curve slopes upwards from left to right. This is the demand curve. Demand curve slopes upwards from left to right. Upward demand curve slopes upwards. That happens in the case of substitutes. Second one is complementaries. Complementaries. Complementary goods are consumed simultaneously to satisfy a want. Complementary goods are those goods which are consumed jointly, which are consumed at a time, which are consumed simultaneously to satisfy a want. Those goods are called complementaries. So here complementary goods are consumed simultaneously to satisfy a want. So a rise in price of one will causes the demand of other to fall and vice versa. Price of one commodity rises, the demand for other commodity falls and vice versa. Price of one commodity falls, the demand for other commodity rises. So a rise in price of one causes the demand of other to fall and vice versa. That means if you observe price of car, demand for petrol. Car and petrol are complementary goods. Car and petrol are complementary goods. Price of car, demand for petrol. Price of car increases, demand for petrol decreases. Price of car increase అయితే కార్లు కొనే వాళ్ళ సంఖ్య తగ్గిపోతుంది. నంబర్ ఆఫ్ కార్స్ తగ్గిపోతాయి. కాబట్టి డిమాండ్ ఫర్ పెట్రోల్ తగ్గుతుంది. ద ప్రైస్ ఆఫ్ ద కార్ డిక్రీజెస్, డిమాండ్ ఫర్ పెట్రోల్ రైజెస్. ప్రైస్ ఆఫ్ కార్ డిక్రీజ్ అయితే అందరూ కార్లు కొంటారు, డిమాండ్ ఫర్ పెట్రోల్ ఇంక్రీజ్ అవుతుంది. సో దేర్ ఈస్ నెగటివ్ ఆర్ ఇన్వర్స్ రిలేషన్షిప్ బిట్వీన్ ఇన్ ద కేస్ ఆఫ్ కాంప్లిమెంటరీ గుడ్స్. దిస్ కెన్ బి ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్డ్ విత్ ది హెల్ప్ ఆఫ్ డయాగ్రామ్. సో draw L shape, mark YOX, price of car is measured on Y axis, demand for petrol is measured on X axis. So original price is OP, original quantity is OQ. Price increases from OP to OP1, quantity decrease from OQ to OQ1. Here price of car increase from OP to OP1, so demand for petrol decrease from OQ to OQ1. So here this is the demand curve. DD demand curve. DD demand curve slopes downwards from left to right. See, if you observe the diagram, price of car rises, demand for petrol falls, and price of car falls, demand for petrol rises. There is a negative or inverse relationship between in the case of complementary goods. Complementary goods విషయంలో నెగటివ్ రిలేషన్షిప్ కానీ ఇన్వర్స్ రిలేషన్షిప్ కానీ ఉంటుంది. Therefore, demand curve slopes downwards from left to right. Demand curve slopes downwards from left to right. So here car and petrol, tea and sugar. So examples of complementary goods అని చెప్పచ్చు. Okay. So this is something information regarding the details of cross demand. So what is cross demand and what are the substitutes and what are the complementaries? What is the shape of the demand curve in the case of substitute? What is the shape of the demand curve in the case of complementaries? In the case of substitutes, there is a positive or direct relationship. Demand curve slopes upwards. In the case of complementaries, there is a negative or inverse relationship between these two. Therefore, demand curve slopes downwards from left to right. This is something the information regarding so the details of cross demand. Thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe and comment.